to.
We've also seen people with white flags in plain sight being shot by your forces. We've also seen people in so-called safe zones being bombed. So we've seen your forces kill people on the run from your bombs as well over the past 6 months.
So again, I would say to you that we feel we are the most humane army which has ever existed in living memory. We've done more to protect civilian lives. Where there have been, Yama, this is important. Let me share with you.
You even shot your own hostages that came
so
out
where
running
there have
alive,
been
waved flags, and your soldiers
an extremely terrible occurrence that was. Hamas is a deadly terrorist organization. So, they killed 1,200, more than 1,200 of my people on October the 7th, babies and beheadings and rapes and terrible, terrible things. So, I think we shouldn't take...
Have the beheadings, by the way, been proven?
Yes.
I haven't seen that proof. Can you explain it to us? Have the beheadings been proven? 1 week into the war, your army spokesperson, Daniel Hagari, showed the world a virtual 3D model of an alleged Hamas command and control center, which stretched several stories beneath the largest medical facility in Gaza, the Al-Shifa hospital, which you know very well of. Why haven't you shown any proof of such a command center? Hamas has never denied they had tunnels under Gaza. That's an open secret. But you're claiming that they had a command center under the biggest hospital in Gaza. You use that as an argument to lay that hospital in ruins, and that's why it's a question the international press has to ask you. Where is this command center under the Al-Shifa hospital?
Today, my focus is on the guy called David Mencer, who you may remember that I had done a story about him and how he was kicked out by Krishnan Gurumurthy from Channel 4 News when he was desperately trying to peddle his Israeli propaganda, but he wasn't allowed to do so and he was kicked out, basically. We know that this guy was formerly associated with Labour. He was the director of Labour's Friends of Israel. So, we are not surprised. And he played a crucial role. In fact, he was one of the henchmen who plotted against Jeremy Corbyn and played a key role in his ouster by playing that anti-Semitism card. We know that this was false, but then, that's the world we live in. You don't need facts, you don't need truth to punish somebody. All you need to do is the support of powerful people, play the anti-Semitism card, and that's it, job done. So that's where we are. Anyway, so the guy is now the official spokesperson of the Israeli government, and I must tell you that he's doing a pretty bad job, in his role as the spokesperson of the Israeli government. It's never easy to be a spokesperson for a regime which is indulging in genocides, committing crime against humanity, and virtually has become a pariah state. And then if it's David Mencer, you know that, the guy is pathetic. I wouldn't even hire him as a maid, a domestic help at my house. He's simply pathetic. And I'll tell you why. Because he appeared on a show presented by Yama Wolasmal of Norwegian Broadcasting Corporation. And you have to watch that interview. I'm going to play snippets of that interview because the whole idea is to dissect that interview for you, to explain it as to how beautiful he has been as a journalist. And that poses a serious question on the efficiency of British journalists, including those working for the BBC. And mind you, you and I, we pay a lot of money in license fee, £160. 160 pound in 2024 when the country is going through a prolonged period of cost of living crisis is a lot of money. And we pay, like me, millions of Britishers, millions of people living in the UK, they pay to fund the journalism of the BBC, and yet BBC has been very, very disappointing. In fact, they have become an extension of the Israeli propaganda machine, and I will come to that. So here's this guy called Yama Wolasmal. Amazing. If one interview that has to be taught in every journalism school, it has to be this interview. So what did he do? He asked various questions, various aspects of Israeli propaganda, Israeli claims, which have up until now gone unchallenged. I mean, the basic rule of journalism is that you do not take any claims from anybody on the face value. You have to ask for the evidence, or if that individual or entity is not being able to present the evidence, you at least expose that individual or entity. At least you do your job by paying the devil's advocate. In the case of Israel, ever since the crisis started, the latest episode of crisis started from 7th of October, the likes of the BBC, most present on Sky News, and the other TV channels across the world have given an open platform to Israeli propagandists. So they come, they make any wild claims, and they go unchallenged. And one of them would be, if you remember, every statement that they make, they say, we are retaliating to the October 7 attacks, in which the claims they make that the children were beheaded, babies were raped. Now we know that beheading claim has been proven wrong. Even Israeli government had to withdraw that claim. And yet these morons are being allowed to make those claims day in, day out. Then they would say that the babies have been raped. We know from the United Nations investigations, and we have broadcast from our channel, that there is no truth to the claims of Hamas fighters committing sexual assaults on the Israeli women. We know that. And Israel hasn't been able to present any evidence in its support. This came for questioning by Yama.
Let's move on to the attacks you've carried out against Gaza's hospitals. The UN says Gaza's health system has been completely destroyed by your forces. Why have you attacked most of the hospitals in Gaza?
Because there is almost not one hospital or medical institution that has not been used as a base for terror, as for weapons storage, with tunnels underneath. Hamas is a deadly terrorist organization. So, they killed more than 1,200 of my people on October the 7th, babies and beheadings and rapes and terrible, terrible things. So, I think we shouldn't take...
Have the beheadings, by the way, been proven?
Yes.
I haven't seen that proof. Can you explain it to us? Have the beheadings been proven?
Yes, they have been proven. You can go on, if you speak to the IDF spokesman, I'm not a spokesman for the IDF, but they will show you the evidence if you ask for it, for those terrible crimes.
But the guy David, formerly with the Labour Party of the UK, simply could not give any evidence, because there is no evidence. Now, evidence also became a running theme of the entire interview, which is around half an hour long. It was the central theme, because Israel has a lot to answer, because otherwise how would they justify the genocide or the brutal murder of over 100,000 people? How would they justify? Because they say that we are fighting Hamas, a terror regime, who operate from tunnel, who hide behind human shields, who hide in hospitals. And that's why, that's the argument Israel has used to justify why it has demolished almost every single healthcare facility in Gaza. My take is that Israel has chosen to demolish every single hospital is because it doesn't want the people who have survived its carpet bombing to receive any treatment. So the people its army has killed, they have killed. Now the people who have survived, Israel basically wants them to die in the absence of any medical treatment. Because don't forget, we are dealing with a monster regime, right? And that's the plan. But then from the Israelis' point of view, they say that we attacked hospitals because Hamas were there and Hamas were taking shelter.
1 week into the war, your army spokesperson Daniel Hagari showed the world a virtual 3D model of an alleged Hamas command and control center which stretched several stories beneath the largest medical facility in Gaza, the Al-Shifa hospital, which you know very well of. Why haven't you shown any proof of such a command center?
Again, Yama, this really line of questioning really shocks us here in Israel, because we've shown the world media, many journalists have been taken to those tunnels. We've seen those bulletproof doors. We've seen the cells, terror dungeon
specifically with
network.
Shifa Hospital, what you've shown the world are abandoned tunnels and shafts and weapons your forces claim were found inside the hospital. That does not prove that Hamas had a 3-story underground command and control center under the Shifa, a claim Israel has used to justify the attacks on hospitals all over the Gaza Strip.
I'm quite disappointed at this line of questioning, and it's not just from you, because we face this unreasonable burden of proof of the horrors of Hamas strategies. We've shown you tunnels.
Hamas has never denied they had tunnels under Gaza. That's an open secret. But you're claiming that they had a command center under the biggest hospital in Gaza. You use that as an argument to lay that hospital in ruins, and that's why it's a question the international press has to ask you. Where is this command center under the Shifa hospital?
Asking questions is, of course, the right thing to do for any journalist, but we have produced evidence of terror tunnels underneath the hospital. I apologize, Yama, if it's not enough for you. I apologize for the fact that we found RPGs in an intensive care unit. I apologize for the fact that we were fired on from the maternity ward. And I can tell you one thing, it wasn't the midwives that were firing at us. The evidence is clearly there. Journalists have been taken there. There is a terror tunnel network twice the size of the London Underground.
You've said it time and again, you find the line of questioning regarding the attacks on the hospitals and questioning these tunnels offensive.
I don't find it offensive, I find it ridiculous, to be
ridiculous.
blank.
Then
For an intelligent person like you, Yama,
but why
it's
don't
ridiculous.
why
What else
don't
do you
you
need to
then-
see? You've seen videos.
Listen, why don't
Hamas
you-
admit it. We're fired from there. The terrorists are there. We killed 200 there. The doctors, we move the doctors and the patients out of the way. I don't know. It's a ridiculous line of questioning.
Now we know Israelis have bulldozed Al-Shifa hospital. We have discovered lots of mass graves from there. Over 700 people have been massacred there. Entire hospital has been flattened or demolished. It's become defunct. It can't be used. Israel had taken siege of that hospital along with Nasser Hospital. And they took the siege for many days. And yet, till date, we haven't been able to find the evidence to justify that Hamas has 3-storied command and control system within that Al-Shifa hospital. Now, we know that Israel hasn't been able to prove that. But what has been worrying trend is that not a single journalist, either from the BBC or from the Sky or from the American media outlets, decided to grill Israel or put Israel in the dock on this outrageous claim. But then Yama did that. And that's why this interview is so special, because he's asking every single question that you and I often wonder as to why people are not asking Israel, why people are not grilling Israelis about it. And the moment he asks that, what response does he get from this propagandist working for the Israeli government, formerly associated with the Labour Party of the United Kingdom? Is that your line of questioning is going to shock people of Israel. I am disappointed by your line of questioning. Yama doesn't stop here. He asks about Rafah operation. You know that Israelis have been threatening to carry out a Rafah operation where 1.4 million people have taken refuge after they had to leave their homes not just once but on many occasions to avoid Israel's carpet bombing. Now Israel is desperate to move into Rafah camp and kill more people, because that's what this regime does. They kill people for fun. Now, of course, America have been asking or urging Israel not to do that. That came for questioning by Yama.
Explain to us why you're bent on moving into Rafah with your forces.
So the first things first on this question of Rafah, we move civilians out of harm's way. That's very important to us. In all of the battles which we fought, and they have been, it's an extremely complex military environment, extremely complex, because it is an urban, it's not a regular battlefield, it is an urban environment where Hamas fire at us from hospitals, from schools, from mosques.
There are 1.4 million people in Rafah.
We believe there are about 1 million, and I think our figures are probably
but that's a
more
lot
trustworthy.
still.
It is.
A lot of people, a military offensive.
We encourage them to go there, to get out of harm's way.
Exactly,
Right.
that's why they're there. But a military offensive into Rafah will end in a slaughter, the UN warns. Tell us, how are you going to evacuate all these people?
In the same way that we've done in the past.
That didn't work very well. You told people to move to what was a safe zone, then your forces would end up bombing that area. Are you going to follow the same formula?
So again, I think that's a misrepresentation of this war. We're after Hamas. We've got no problem with ordinary Gazans. I won't be sharing with you our battle plans. They're being discussed right now.
I'm not asking about the battle
Right.
plan, Mr. Mencer.
So
I'm
you
asking,
just have to
how
look.
are you going to evacuate 1.4 million people out of Rafah?
We will do the same as we've done in other parts of this harsh military war. We move people out of harm's way. We've already acquired, there's been multiple reports of shelters which have been acquired, safe zones where people can move to.
We've also seen people with white flags in plain sight being shot by your forces. We've also seen people in so-called safe zones being bombed. So we've seen your forces kill people on the run from your bombs as well over the past 6 months.
So again, I would say to you that we feel we are the most humane army which has ever existed in living memory. We've done more to protect civilian lives. Where there have been, Yama, this is important. Let me share with you.
You even shot your own hostages.
Right.
That came
So
out
where
running
there have
alive,
been
waved flags, and your soldiers
an extremely terrible occurrence that was.
I mean, the reason why I say his interview should be showcased in every journalism school is because he doesn't take any nonsense or bullshit coming from this guy. So this guy says, oh, well, I mean, we will keep them from harm's way as we have done, you know, in the last 6 months. He counters that. He said, no, you haven't. You have actually told these people to leave their houses in North Gaza or Gaza City to move south, and the moment they move south, you started targeting them by carpet bombing them. So you've killed them. You have killed innocent people when they were showing the white flags. He comes up with every factual element to demolish the propaganda of this guy. Then Yama forces this propagandist to express his hatred for every international institutions, including the United Nations.
Does Israel abide by international law?
Yes.
A UN Security Council resolution passed more than 4 weeks ago demanded a ceasefire. It demanded a stop to the war. Such a resolution is legally binding for all UN members, yet your forces continue to bomb Gaza. Isn't that a clear breach of international law?
So the Americans made clear that it wasn't legally binding, and with all the legal cases you can get a number of opinions, but they made sure that it wasn't legally binding.
Why doesn't Israel respect the UN Security Council resolution ordering you to cease fire? You know that the only way Israel managed to release around 100 hostages was through negotiations, which paved the way for a ceasefire back in December. Yet you're continuing the war. Why?
We're not dealing with Norway here. We're not dealing with Scandinavia. We're dealing with a genocidal, murderous organization. We would love to be able to settle all of our differences around the negotiating table, but again and again and again, Hamas keep walking away. And you know, this war could end this afternoon, before the sun goes down behind me. This war could end right now if Hamas did two things: laid down their arms and released our hostages.
More than 34,000 people have been killed in Gaza, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry. Your government rejects these figures. Why?
Would you take the figures of Al-Qaeda at face value?
But the UN and WHO says the figures from the Gaza Health Ministry, Hamas's health ministry, are reliable, that they even passed international scrutiny in previous wars. In fact, if you look up the numbers, in the wars in 2014 and 2021, Israel's and Hamas's casualty numbers were almost identical. Why would suddenly they lie in this current crisis and war?
The health ministry does not differentiate between a civilian combatant, which is a tragedy, we say that very, very clearly, and a terrorist. We do. We do.
The UN says these numbers coming from the Hamas Health Ministry are reliable. There's no reason to doubt them because several times this health ministry during this war has published long lists of names where you have the ID number, their names. Detailed lists have been published documenting who has been killed inside the Gaza Strip during this war. You claim you've killed 13,000 Hamas fighters, yet you haven't produced any lists whatsoever. No documentation. It's a number you're giving the world.
It's a number which our army has given to us in a democratic country with checks and balances, with media scrutiny, with all the Western values that Norway holds dear or should hold dear.
But Mr. Mencer, I ask you again, where is the concrete proof that you've killed 13,000 fighters? Okay, you claim it, but where is the proof? At least Hamas's health ministry has published lists confirming who has died several times.
I wouldn't take Hamas's word for anything, literally anything.
So we shouldn't believe Hamas, we shouldn't believe the UN, the World Health Organizations, all the aid groups on the ground, rights groups from all over the world. We shouldn't believe them, we should believe the Israeli government.
You'll excuse me if I feel extremely skeptical about almost anything which comes out of the United Nations.
He reminds them that how Israel has been in violation of United Nations Security Council's resolution, how Israel has been disobeying the ICJ ruling, how Israel's action has been condemned by United Nations agencies. This prompts this propagandist to say that he doesn't even trust United Nations. Now, rightly so, Yama says that if you don't trust anybody, wouldn't it be better for you to allow international journalists to go, who can go there and work independently and verify all the facts? He said, oh, we have journalists out there and we have taken journalists there, to which, rightly so, again, Yama says that they were not independent journalists. The word he uses that they were on the guided tour, which is true. Because the journalists that Israel had taken very early in the part of this crisis were not allowed to film independently. They could only speak to the people that the Israeli terrorists would allow them. And they could not, make any videos or any observations independently.
Why don't you open Gaza for international press who can freely move around and check these tunnels for themselves? Because what you've done until now in this war, you've sealed the borders. No journalists, independent journalists, are allowed in to Gaza by your forces and by Egypt. The journalists you're talking about who are allowed in are handpicked by the IDF. They go on so-called embeds, where the IDF forces decide where they go, where they move, where they film, and who they talk to. That's hardly the standard of free press.
So Yama, we have taken in many, many journalists, critical journalists, critical journalists as well. We have taken in many, many journalists on the point.
On guided tours,
Right.
Mr. Mencer, that's different. That's not how free press should operate. We should have the ability, the possibility to move around freely, to check and verify things for ourselves. That's our job, especially in a war.
So in a way, if you look at this interview, it's a long interview. I suggest you go there and watch the whole interview. I can share, you can see the link in my description. I mean, it's a must watch. The lies don't have a long shelf life. Somebody, maybe the BBC has become corrupted. Maybe the Sky News doesn't have the spine, or it has its own agenda to follow. But there are good people. There are good people from within the mainstream media, like this Yama from Norway. Because one of the things that they always do, these people, they always come up with emotional card. If nothing works, they say, oh, you know what? What if it was London? What if it was Norway? But they forget that this card is not going to work with everybody else. At least it didn't work with Yama. So well done, Yama. Really, really proud of you as a journalist. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.